Welcome back to KickRo FC. Last episode, the World Cup survived 13 teams on a boat, a dictator using it as propaganda, and a world war that made it disappear entirely for 12 years. Now, football is finally coming back, and what happens next is one of the most devastating afternoons in the history of sport. This is episode 2, the Maracanazo.
12 years. That's how long the world went without a World Cup. And when football finally came back, it needed somewhere worthy of the moment. Brazil didn't just want to host the World Cup in 1950. They wanted to build a monument to it. They built the largest stadium the world had ever seen, the Maracanã.
A concrete bowl designed to hold nearly 200,000 people.
A number that sounds almost impossible today. And it was almost impossible then, too. Some sections weren't even finished when the tournament began. But the stadium wasn't just about capacity. It was a statement. After a war that had left Europe in ruins, Brazil was announcing itself. This was South America's moment to show the world it belonged at the very center of football. And for most of the tournament, that's exactly what happened. Brazil tore through the tournament. They didn't just win matches, they humiliated opponents. 7 goals against Sweden, 6 against Spain. Brazil wasn't just the host nation anymore. They were being treated as inevitable. Newspapers had practically crowned them champions before the final ball was even kicked. There's a detail that captures just how certain everyone was. Ahead of the final, some newspapers in Rio had already printed the headline declaring Brazil world champions. A commemorative song had been written and rehearsed, ready to play the moment the final whistle blew. The mayor of Rio de Janeiro stood before the players and told them, in front of the entire nation, that they were already champions. All Brazil needed was a draw. Not even a win, just a draw against Uruguay. In front of a crowd that would swell past that stadium's already massive capacity, would be enough to secure the title. Nearly 200,000 people packed into the Maracanã that day. It remains, to this day, the largest crowd to ever watch a football match anywhere on Earth. Brazil scored first. The stadium erupted. It felt like a formality now. The party had already started in the stands before the game had even finished. But Uruguay had other plans. They equalized. And then, with the clock running down, a player named Alcides Ghiggia found space down the right side, cut inside, and slotted the ball into the corner of the net. Uruguay 2, Brazil 1. What happened next has become one of the most famous moments in the history of sport. Not because of noise, but because of the absence of it. Nearly 200,000 people who moments earlier had been celebrating a championship that hadn't even happened yet fell into complete, stunned silence. The commemorative song was never played. The newspapers with Brazil's name printed as champions were pulled or quietly forgotten. In Brazil, this moment was given a name that has outlived every player who was on the field that day: the Maracanazo. It's hard to overstate what this loss did to a nation. Some accounts describe fans in the stadium collapsing from shock. Reports at the time spoke of a period of national mourning that lasted for days. For decades afterward, Brazilian football carried something close to a psychological scar from that single afternoon. A fear that no matter how dominant they looked, it could all disappear in 90 minutes. The Maracanazo wasn't just a shocking scoreline. It was the moment football proved something that would define the World Cup forever. That no lead is safe, no crowd is big enough, and no outcome is ever truly written until the final whistle blows. Uruguay had done it once before, in 1930. As underdogs, nobody expected to win. Now they'd done it again, on the biggest stage football had ever built. In front of the largest crowd the sport had ever seen, against a team that had already started celebrating. Brazil would eventually get their redemption, but not for 8 more years. And when it finally came, it would arrive through the hands and feet of a 17-year-old boy nobody outside Brazil had ever heard of.
But every heartbreak in football eventually meets its redemption, and that's the Maracanazo. Still to this day, one of the most painful afternoons in the history of any sport. And in the next episode, Brazil finally gets theirs through a 17-year-old kid who almost didn't even make the squad, and who ends up giving the world what we now call the beautiful game. If you're enjoying this series, hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you want to keep going right now, episode 3 is right there on your screen. I'll see you in episode 3.